My husband always said the insurance paperwork was his domain. You have enough to worry about with the kids, he would tell me, sliding folders back into the filing cabinet before I could even glance at them. Leave the financial stuff to me. I believed him. For 4 years, I believed him completely. His name is Marcus. Mine is Claire. We met at a friend's barbecue in Phoenix when I was 26 and he was 31. He was the kind of man who remembered how you took your coffee and always held the door open. He was steady, reliable, the type of person who color-coded spreadsheets for fun and paid every bill 3 days early. I was a pediatric nurse working 12-hour shifts, perpetually exhausted, perpetually grateful that someone in my life had things under control. We married 18 months after that barbecue. 2 years later, we had our son, Noah. A year after that, our daughter, Lily. They came into our lives like little earthquakes, beautiful, loud, all-consuming. Marcus was a devoted father. He coached Noah's t-ball team. He braided Lily's hair on school mornings when I was already on the road to the hospital. I never doubted him. Not once. Until the Tuesday morning when everything changed. I was home on a rare day off. Marcus had left for work early. The kids were at school. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my second cup of coffee, still in my pajamas, not thinking about anything in particular, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Is this the Delaney residence? A woman asked. Yes, I said. May I speak with Marcus Delaney? He's not home. Can I take a message? A pause. Then, this is Patricia from Nationwide Life. I'm calling regarding a recent change to the beneficiary designations on policies held under his name. We like to do a courtesy verification call when significant changes are made. Are you his spouse? I am, I said slowly. Wonderful. Would you be able to confirm whether Mr. Delaney discussed these changes with you? The update was processed last Thursday. My coffee was getting cold. I stared at the grain of the kitchen table. What changes exactly? Another pause. Longer this time. I'm showing that the beneficiary on the primary policy was updated. Previously it listed you as primary beneficiary. The current designation lists a... She hesitated. A Ms. Renee Fowler. I didn't know that name. I said so. I see, Patricia said carefully. I apologize for the confusion. I'll note this call in the account. Is there anything else I can help you with? I hung up and sat there for a long time. Renee Fowler. I typed the name into my phone with hands that were steadier than they had any right to be. It was the nurse in me. I think that clinical ability to keep functioning when something goes wrong, to stay calm until you understand exactly what you're dealing with. There were a few Renee Fowlers on social media. I found her on the 3rd try. She lived in Scottsdale. She was 34, close to my age. She had dark hair and bright eyes, and in her profile photo she was laughing at something off camera. She looked like someone's fun coworker. She looked completely ordinary. I didn't recognize her. But the name of the company listed on her profile stopped me cold. Pinnacle Financial Group. Marcus's firm. I closed my phone. I opened it again. I went to our shared email and account we'd set up years ago for household bills and school correspondence, and I searched for Nationwide. I found nothing. I searched for insurance. I found routine confirmations, nothing unusual. Then I searched for beneficiary, and that's when I found the thread Marcus had accidentally sent to our joint account instead of his personal one. A thread between him and someone named Greg, a colleague I had met exactly twice at company parties. The email was from 8 months ago. Got the new policy set up, Marcus had written. Kids are listed. The payout structure you recommended makes sense. R knows what she's doing. Greg had replied, smart. Timing matters though. Make sure it's after the Sedona trip. I read that sentence 4 times. The Sedona trip. Marcus had been planning a family vacation to Sedona for months. He booked it 3 weeks ago. A long weekend, a cabin in the Red Rocks, a reset for all of us. He'd been enthusiastic about it in a way that was slightly unusual for him, a man who typically treated vacations as logistics problems to be solved rather than things to look forward to. He'd researched the hiking trails himself. He'd printed maps of hiking trails. My children were 5 and 3 years old. I got up from the table, walked to the filing cabinet in Marcus's home office, and pulled the handle. Locked. He kept it locked, he always had, citing important documents and organization. I had never questioned it. I had my own system for my nursing licenses and tax documents. His system was his. I found the key 40 minutes later in the back of his sock drawer, underneath a pair of compression socks from a marathon he'd run 2 years ago. I don't know what I expected when I opened the cabinet. I think part of me was still hoping for a reasonable explanation. A surprise account. A gift fund. Anything. What I found was a folder labeled simply with our last name, and inside it, 4 insurance policies. 2 were the ones I knew about, the standard life insurance Marcus and I had taken out together after Noah was born. Those were normal. Those had my name on them. The other 2 I had never seen. They had been opened 14 months ago. Each one was in the name of one of our children. Noah's policy had a face value of $1.2 million. Lily's was the same. The listed beneficiary on both was Renee Fowler. I sat down on the floor of his office. I'm a pediatric nurse. I have held the hands of parents receiving the worst news of their lives. I have kept my voice even and my expression calm in rooms where families were falling apart. I believe that training saved me in that moment, because what I felt when I read those documents was so enormous that my body simply couldn't process it all at once. Instead of breaking down, I went somewhere very still and very focused. I photographed every page with my phone. I put the folder back exactly where I found it. I locked the cabinet and replaced the key. Then I called my older sister Dana. I did not call Marcus. That part was important, I understood, even in my shock, that I couldn't tip him off. Dana had been through her own divorce 6 years ago and had a lawyer's number saved in her contacts like a talisman against future disaster. I drove to her house with the photographs on my phone and a feeling in my chest like I'd swallowed broken glass. Dana spread the photos across her kitchen table. She didn't say anything for a long time. "You need to call Tom," she finally said, referring to her attorney. "Today. Right now. Tell me what you're thinking," I said. I needed someone else to say it first. She looked at me. "Claire, your husband took out $1 million life insurance policies on your children, with another woman as the beneficiary, and there's an email about timing it with a specific trip." She paused. "What do you think I'm thinking?" I drove to the attorney's office that afternoon while the kids were still in school. Tom was a compact, serious man with reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. He listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, he set down his pen. "The policies themselves are unusual but not illegal," he said. "Parents can insure children, but the beneficiary designation, combined with the communication you found, is deeply concerning. The phrasing about timing, that's what worries me." He leaned forward. "Mrs. Delaney, I want you to call the FBI." I had thought he might say call the police. I had not thought he would say the FBI. "This falls under federal insurance fraud statutes at minimum," he explained. "If there's any indication of planned harm to collect on these policies, that escalates significantly. You should not confront your husband. You should not change your behavior in any way that signals you know something. Can you do that?" I thought about Marcus sitting across from me at dinner the night before, asking Noah about kindergarten math, cutting Lily's chicken into small pieces. I thought about how normal it had all looked. "Yes," I said. "I can do that." The next 9 days were the longest of my life. I went home. I made dinner. I helped with baths and bedtime. I laughed at the right moments and asked about Marcus's day, and when he mentioned Sedona when he said at dinner on Thursday, "Only 2 more weeks, buddy," to Noah, who pumped his fist. I smiled and said I needed to find my hiking boots. Marcus smiled back. He looked pleased. I threw up in the bathroom afterward, quietly, with the fan running. I had given the FBI agent everything I had. The photographs, the email I'd forwarded to Dana's account before deleting any trace from the joint inbox, the phone number for Patricia at Nationwide. Her name was Agent Simmons. She was calm in a way that I recognized, the same steadiness I used at work. She told me the investigation was moving. She told me to keep my routine exactly the same. She told me not to search Renee Fowler's name again from any device in my home. I asked her, on day 4, what she thought the plan was. She was quiet for a moment. Based on what you've described and what we've found so far, our working theory is staged accident, high-risk hiking terrain, children's ages making it plausible. She paused. You were not on the policies, Mrs. Delaney. Your husband's own policy lists you as beneficiary. Only the children's policies list Miss Fowler. I understood what she was not saying. I was not supposed to be part of whatever came next. Just my children. Does she know? I asked. Renee, does she know what the policies are for? That's part of what we're establishing, Agent Simmons said carefully. On day 7, I learned the answer to that question, and it made everything more complicated. Dana called me at work, speaking quietly and quickly. She had found something on public record, a civil case from 3 years ago in Maricopa County. Renee Fowler had been the plaintiff in a lawsuit against a former partner, a man who had, according to the filing, deceived her in a relationship and caused significant financial harm. She had won a small judgment. The details suggested she had been lied to before, badly, by someone she trusted. I didn't know what to do with that information. I still don't know entirely, but I held it alongside everything else, and I kept going to work, and I kept making dinner, and I kept smiling at Marcus across the table, while my children laughed about things. Only they found funny. On day 9, Agent Simmons called me on my drive home from the hospital. We're moving tomorrow, she said. I need you to keep the children home from school. Do not go far. Stay inside. I called in sick for the kids. I told Marcus they both had runny noses, which was plausible enough. Lily's classroom had been cycling through a cold for weeks. He kissed me on the cheek before he left for work. He smelled like the same soap he'd used for 4 years. He said, "Feel better, guys," to the children who were on the couch watching cartoons. He didn't look back. They arrested him at 11:14 a.m. in the parking garage of his office building. I know the time because Agent Simmons texted me 2 words. He's in custody. I was sitting on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinets and Lily in my lap and Noah building something elaborate with Lego 6 feet away, and I read those words and I put the phone face down on the tile and I breathed. I breathed for a long time. The case moved faster than I expected and slower than I could stand. What the investigation revealed came to me in pieces through Tom, through Agent Simmons, through the formal discovery process that felt like reading a stranger's life. Marcus had met Renee 2.5 years ago at a work conference. They had been in a relationship for most of that time. From what investigators determined, he had told her he was separated, that he stayed in the house for the children's sake, that he was finalizing a divorce. She had believed him. She had no knowledge of the insurance policies. When agents interviewed her, she reportedly broke down. The plan, as prosecutors reconstructed it, was built around the Sedona trip. The cabin Marcus had booked was near a trail system known for elevation and loose rock. He had researched it extensively. His search history showed dozens of queries about the trails, weather conditions in April, and buried underneath those, queries about blood alcohol limits and accident investigation procedures. He had also searched 9 months prior. How long does accidental death insurance pay out? They had found on his personal laptop a draft email to a real estate agent in Scottsdale, an email he had never sent. Timestamped 6 months ago, inquiring about a 2-bedroom condo near a zip code that matched Renee Fowler's address. He had been planning a life. A different one. One that began after Sedona. I have been asked many times since whether I saw signs, whether something had felt wrong, and I have thought about that question more carefully than I've ever thought about anything, because I am a person who believes in honesty, and I wanted to give an honest answer. The only thing I can say is this: he was very good at being normal. He was so good at it that I think sometimes people who are capable of terrible things are sustained by that performance. They live inside it so completely that the terrible thing stays sealed off, a room no one is supposed to open. I never opened that room. He never gave me a reason to. What gave me a reason was a stranger on the phone asking about paperwork. That's all it was. A misdirected phone call. a courtesy verification, a woman named Patricia doing her job. Marcus was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and child endangerment. Renee Fowler was not charged with any crime. Greg, his colleague, pled guilty to a single count of conspiracy and received a reduced sentence in exchange for his cooperation. The prosecutor described him as someone who had known the broad outline of Marcus's plan and had said nothing, not because he approved, she told the jury, but because he was a coward. The trial lasted 11 days. I sat in that courtroom every day. I had decided I would do that, and I kept the decision even when it was hard, which it was every single day. Marcus never looked at me directly. Not once in 11 days did he turn his head in my direction. I had wondered before it started whether seeing him in that context would make me feel something different, smaller, maybe, or more broken. Instead, I found that sitting there, watching the process unmove, made me feel like I was holding something together. For Noah. For Lily. For the version of myself that had almost not called Dana. He was convicted on all counts. The sentencing came 6 weeks later. Marcus received 22 years. I stood in the parking lot of the courthouse after, and Dana held my hand and we didn't say anything for a while. It was a warm day in November, the kind that happens in Phoenix sometimes, where the light is clear and flat and everything looks very precise. Lily had a play date. Noah had soccer. The world was continuing its ordinary business without us. "How are you feeling?" Dana finally asked. I thought about it seriously because she deserved a serious answer. "Like I have to go figure out who I am now," I said. She squeezed my hand. "You were always this person," she said. "You just didn't know it yet." I sold the house. We moved to a neighborhood 3 miles away, close enough that the kids kept their schools. Far enough that I stopped seeing the old street in my peripheral vision every time I left for work. I found a therapist who specialized in trauma, and I sat in her office twice a week for the first 6 months and cried in ways I hadn't let myself do while everything was still in motion. Noah is 7 now. He asks about his father sometimes, and I tell him the truth in the portions that a 7-year-old can hold, that his dad made very bad choices, that those choices hurt people, that it was not because of anything Noah did. I say these things, and I mean them with every part of myself. Lily is 5. She remembers less. She loves her kindergarten teacher and is currently obsessed with a particular kind of strawberry yogurt and has recently decided that she wants to be a veterinarian, a chef, or a princess, depending on the day. She is luminous and completely herself. And every morning when I walk her to the school gate and she turns back to wave at me with her whole arm, I think about Sedona. I think about trails and loose rock and April weather. And then I think about Patricia at Nationwide making a courtesy call. And I go to work. And I take care of other people's children because I am very good at it. And I come home. A few months ago, I received a letter. It was forwarded through Tom's office, no return address, postmarked Scottsdale. Inside was a single piece of paper. I didn't know, it said, "I'm so sorry. I hope your children are well." It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. I kept the letter for 2 days, then I wrote back, also through Tom's office, also unsigned. I know, I wrote, "Thank you." They are. That was all. Some things don't need more than that. Some doors close quietly, without ceremony, and that's enough. That's more than enough. The filing cabinet is gone. I put it at the curb on a Tuesday and someone took it by noon. My home office now has a small desk and a lamp and a plant I am trying very hard not to kill. My documents are in a folder I chose myself, and a color I like, on a shelf I can see from my desk. Nobody locks anything in my house. Not anymore. There is something I have come to understand about the way consequences work. Not as punishment handed down from somewhere above, but as the natural result of the choices we make and the ones we fail to make. Marcus built his plan carefully. He was methodical about it. He color-coded spreadsheets and paid bills 3 days early and presented himself to the world as a man who had everything under control. And in a way, he did. He had the folders locked. He had the timeline mapped. He had the folders locked. He had the timeline mapped. He had thought of nearly everything. What he had not thought of was a courtesy call. That is what undoes people in the end. Not the grand gesture, not the dramatic confrontation, but the small, ordinary gap in the plan that no one thought to close. A woman named Patricia doing her job. A phone call that went to the wrong number. That is all the difference between my children going to Sedona and my children coming home. I think about that a great deal. I think about how close it was. And then I stop. Because I have learned that holding the near miss too tightly is its own kind of trap. What matters is what I did when I had the information. I did not freeze. I did not wait for someone to tell me what to do. I called my sister. I went to an attorney. I made the call to the FBI with hands that were not entirely steady, and I kept going anyway. That is what I want to say to anyone watching this who has felt, in some moment of their life, that the thing they are facing is simply too large. The action you take when you are afraid is still action. It still counts. It counts more, maybe, than the action you take when everything feels safe. Marcus made choices over a long period of time, and each one built on the last. A lie sustained requires another lie to hold it up. A plan built on harm requires more harm to execute it. That is not philosophy. It is just mechanics. The structure he built was always going to require something terrible at the end of it. The only question was whether anyone would see it coming. I saw it, not because I was smarter than him, but because I was paying attention when it mattered, and because I trusted what I found, even when part of me did not want it to be true. That is the harder thing, I think. Not the intelligence to understand what you're looking at, but the honesty to accept it, to not explain it away, to not give the benefit of the doubt one more time when the evidence has already told you what you need to know. Noah and Lily are doing well. They are loud and funny and completely themselves, the way children are when they feel safe. I am the person who makes them feel safe now. Just me, and I will not pretend that is not exhausting sometimes. But I will also not pretend it is not exactly where I am supposed to be. I earned this life by refusing to look away. That is something nobody can take from me. If you are in a situation where something feels wrong, not dramatic, not obvious, just quietly, persistently wrong, please listen to that. Not every locked cabinet contains what Marcus's did, but you are allowed to ask. You are allowed to look. You are allowed to know the truth about your own life. That is not disloyalty. That is not paranoia. That is the most basic form of taking care of yourself and the people who depend on you. The filing cabinet is gone. The house is different. My name is the only name on everything now. That is enough. That is more than enough.